Andre Lawless, CMO and one-man marketing army for Lawless Marketing. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. How you doing, Andre?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to get a chance to talk.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we've been talking a lot about operations on these calls and these videos, and had a lot of really great experts talking about how operations have changed during this pandemic. Your expertise is marketing, so could you kind of walk us through some of those marketing changes that people may need to think about that maybe they haven't been thinking about?
Yeah, a lot of the way that I'm looking at this from the perspective of businesses that are reemerging and reopening in this time is it may be a good time to think about this as your restart mode. Go back to the whiteboard. Go deeper into your meaning to your audience, and if you think of yourself as a startup, you may be able to kind of change the framework, and the way that you look at your business and start again in a way that takes advantage of the business that you've built, but also enables you to look at it with fresh eyes.
So what are those elements of a startup from a marketing standpoint that apply directly to businesses that are, trying their best to emerge from the pandemic and reopen?
Yeah, I think one of the big parts is when you're a startup, there's so many unknowns that you need to address. So there's market research that you need to do. There's assumptions that you need to make based on kind of competition in the space and unique value proposition, things like that, where if you're an established business, you probably haven't done SWOT analysis in a long time. So what are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What are your opportunities as a business? What are your threats from competition? I don't know that established businesses continue to think about themselves that way. And that's why I'm encouraging people to think as if you're in startup mode, even if you're 30-year-old, 40-year-old, multi-generation company.
So Andre, I'm curious, you mentioned market research, and we can probably all agree that we're in a new market, right? So where are you telling people to get this market research? Like where should they look for the things that can help them drive that even the SWOT analysis for themselves?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think part of it is you need to go into your own data as a starting point. So that's part of my advice is go into the data that you've got. So your play data, what games are getting played the most, what attractions are getting played the most, who's playing them? Do you have a sense of what your audience looks like in terms of their persona? What kinds of players are coming in? What kinds of guests are visiting? So some of it is just start with what you've already got. And I think some of it is also take a fresh look at as businesses resume at who's still around and who's communicating how. What are the means that they're using to attract attention, and start putting together a little bit of a list of your competition, who's doing well, and what are they really good at. This is where I think even established brands can go back to basics and look for their unique value proposition. So what is it that you actually do differently and better than the guy next to you? So I think competition is going to be fierce. And there's a lot of underlying psychology for the potential players that are coming back that I think is worth looking at in terms of trying to understand when to communicate with them and how to communicate with them as this country comes back online, as the world comes back online.
So with all of this data from doing this SWOT analysis and the competitive analysis, what's then kind of the next step? At that point, are you still operating in startup mode, even though you've kind of got hopefully a lot of intelligence, coming into play? Or are you looking at or are you recommending like completely changing the way that marketing is being done right now? Obviously, there's some huge components of it, but then what are the best ways then to kind of use all that information combined with the unknowns and then turn that into something that resonates well with your ideal audience?
Yeah, really good question. So I think the start is throw out assumptions, right? So some of the SWOT analysis that's things that you can do internally. I think if you don't have a metric for understanding your meaning to your audience, that's a good thing to sort of start as well. So if some people use what they call NPS or Net Promoter Score, where you can get a baseline of of the people in your audience, in your email list, in your social media channels, for example, who are the promoters? Who are the detractors? Who are the people that would really be likely to recommend you to a friend? And get that number. That's a metric that you can use as a baseline. And then as you start rolling out, reopening marketing and reopening communications, every so often you can ask that same question again. How likely are you to promote my business? And then see if you can change that number for the better over time. So that's part of it from my perspective. I don't think you stay in startup mode, but I think reopening is a challenge. Getting people to come back is a challenge. And I think that's where I like to think of this as sort of can you throw a grand reopening to your location? Can you reward your loyalists? So it's possible that your capacity has changed and you can't have as many people in a location as you used to. So the audience that I would go for first are the audience that's already played. So the people that have played and come back and would recommend you to a friend, and give them some rewards, thank them. So go back to social media, activate those channels, and tell people how much you miss them, how much they mean to you. But that's a push. I think the marketing that I'm suggesting is kind of a push and pull. So ask them how they feel. Ask them what they miss. Ask them what they miss about your business. I think sometimes we lose sight of what the business really means to the audience. You might think it's the features that you offer. You might think it's your customer service. Find out. You might actually find out that it's things that are deeper than that. That it's that your location is a location that people come to celebrate life, to connect with their friends, to have really meaningful moments in their lives. And if you find out that that's true, amplify that, talk about that. That's a great way to attract new customers, because it's not just about offering, which is kind of a commodity. Anybody can kind of pick up some similar games and similar offering, but what makes you unique is your brand. Jeff Bezos from Amazon says that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's your customers that are defining your meaning. It's not you. It's not what you believe that matters. It's what they believe that matters. So the advantage of having an established business with an audience over a startup, for example, is you probably have some loyalists. It's a good time to thank them and get them back to your location. So I recommend thinking about it as a grand reopening, and maybe have a preview day or a preview night where you only invite the people that are already invested as an audience in your business, and you say your capacity for a location is 100 people with new guidelines. So I would go after, try to get 300 people saying, I want to be on that short list of people that come into your location. And then treat them like VIPs. Have a party, have a happy hour, have snacks from a local business. You really give them something to feel like they're part of something special, because I think that's what helps sell these attractions is the emotions that people feel when they connect with experiences, rather than just the technology or just the particular game.
Andre, you were talking about the push and pull, right? And I totally agree that, you kind of have to have both. And you were asking about asking your guests for their impressions. That can be a little scary because we don't know what those answers are going to be, but it's also a little scary because sometimes, we don't know either what questions to ask or how to ask those questions. Can you give us some tips or pointers about either what questions to ask or how to ask them so we get the right data back?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, some of my focus over recent years has been with immersive technology and VR companies and other disruptive technologies. And VR is a great example of what you're asking is, I tell people not to market the technology, but to market the emotions that people feel. So that's what I would ask them about is, what do you love about my location? What do you love about my attraction? What do you love about my business? And I think what you'll find is unexpected. What you'll find is that they actually go deep. They talk about, the great times that they've had, the parties that they've experienced, the getting together with their friends and getting a squad to go out and feel alive. And so I think the questions that I would ask is, of the guests is, what do you miss? What have you missed? What are you looking forward to? Deeper questions than what do you want to play the most? I think you can ask those questions too, but I think you can even couch those questions in emotional context. So if you have games, video games in your location that are shooters and those are popular and the data tells you those are popular, you can position it as, quarantine got you down, take out your frustrations on hordes of zombies and killer robots and rampaging dinosaurs, and, play up the fantasy of it, but from an emotional standpoint. So if your games are physical, talk about how it's getting you off the couch, it's getting guests off the couch, it's getting them to feel alive again. If your games are social, talk about the way that people can connect in your location through play, through experiences. Those are the things that I always like to go to, because big experiences are rare. There's a lot of products with features out there, but moments that you can remember, those are the things that I think deepen friendships. Those are the things that create those those deeper resonant bonds with brands. And I think one of the things that's proven true and seems to be becoming even more true is that people buy from brands that they believe in, that they trust, that they have a relationship with. And I think as millennials have become more of a buying force, it's even more important for them. They tend to be less trusting of institutions, less trusting of chains and brands. And I think what they look for is, what do you mean? What's the meaning here?
What I think is cool too is the way that you describe that, is that the messaging really defines that it is solving a problem, right? That it is not just,
right,
hey, come back because we're open, but like you just said, that your zombie shooter game now has a whole new purpose than it did before.
The apocalypse, they promised us zombies. Where were the zombies? And so also be light, be funny. And I think part of what I didn't touch on it yet is, I think everybody needs to feel safe before they'll come out at all. And I think that that's the first step in this communication in this time, is to make them feel safe. There's a kind of a famous guideline called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a pyramid that shows on the bottom of the pyramid are your physiological needs. So food and air and shelter and water. You have to address those first. Those are our primary concerns. As you move on and those are covered, your next concern is safety and security. So I think given the time frame that we're in right now, it is important to tell people what's changed, what you've had to change, what's going to keep them safe. It's important to make the things that you're doing in hygiene obvious. There's this notion of hygiene theater. It's not that the theater is replacing real protocols. I think you need to double down on your cleaning protocols and make them more visible. So guests that are looking around your place, one of the things that adds up about the brand is, well, these guys are really concerned about my safety and my happiness. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time talking about disease. I wouldn't, people don't necessarily want too many rules, and they definitely don't want to focus on kind of the worst case scenario. So I think you could do that in a fun way. You can do that in a subtle way. And I think talking about things like, hey, the apocalypse is here and we've never got zombies, come back in and play, shoot zombies. That's a fun way of kind of addressing the underlying things. People are lethargic right now. They're isolated, they're frustrated. And I think that Maslow's hierarchy comes back into play. Once you've established that you're safe and that you're secure, the next thing that people want is connection. They want connection with their friends. They want social interaction. They want their families. So talk about that. Talk about your place, your attraction being something that serves friends, that serves families. Like, bring the family in to celebrate life. I think everybody's feeling kind of stifled and penned in. And I think those are some of the things that you can market about: freedom to live again, freedom to play again, freedom to celebrate life. Those are things I would absolutely infuse into your marketing messaging right now.
Andre, a lot of the things that you've been talking about, and you even said so, kind of thinking of yourself as a startup, right, are fantastic for the people who aren't open yet. And I think are really good pieces of advice for people who are already open but still need a little jump start. Do you have anything specific that you're thinking or that you're advising people on? Like they've already opened, for example, they've already got some distancing out there, they're wearing masks, but they're just not seeing the return yet of their guests. You know, are there any other tactics that you can think of that people can use once they're already open?
Yeah, and I think so. Some of it goes back to going deeper and trying to to tap into those underlying feelings, even amongst the people that have played before. Make them feel special. Give them a reason to come back. Maybe it's time to seriously look at a loyalty program where people who have played in the past get some benefit for coming back, and you use those as your first audience and build from there. I think this is a time to really consider what your digital marketing strategies are as well. Like, how are you acquiring new users? How are you acquiring new guests? So there's all kinds of new strategies and new, there's a new playbook for how to build an audience that you may not be using because you may be a business that's been in business for a while and you've got a more traditional means of communication, but you can use digital ads in Facebook and in Google and drive those people to a landing page and then tell them if they give you their email address that you're going to put them on a list where they can get some promotions and some benefits, and you can build that list. And that's the cool thing about digital tools that you may not be using as a business is once you have an audience, and this is the advantage of anyone that's already been open, if you have an email list, you can upload that email list to Google or Facebook, and they use their algorithms to help find people that are like the people that have already played, and they serve the ads just to those people that are most likely to want to come experience your product. Those are tactics that older, established, traditional businesses might not be using. It may be time to think about that. If I was talking to any amusement business or location-based entertainment business coming into the space right now, I would absolutely say, all right, what's your digital marketing plan for acquiring new users? Once you have a new user, you can create automations and email programs that send them through a journey that say, welcome, here's a coupon to come in for the first time. Once they've played the first time and they've already kind of flipped a trigger that says, I'm a returning customer, they get a different set of emails that say, maybe you should come in Tuesday night. One of the things that I'm thinking about a lot is if you had very predictable play patterns, that kind of 80-20 sort of rule where 80% of your audience comes in at just these particular hours and just these particular days, what can you do to drive people into those other times, right? To spread out your audience a little bit so that you can hopefully get more customers over time by driving different kinds of customers in at different times. So those are some of the things I would recommend to even a 100-year-old, 150-year-old businesses to say, that's part of going back to basics is employ some of the new techniques that you might not be using because you didn't think you had to. Well, you have to now. Mm-hmm. I think those are the assumptions that I would encourage everyone to throw out. The competition is going to be fierce. Your customers have changed. They need real value from what you offer. You need to be able to communicate what that value is. You may not even remember how to do that. And I don't mean that to be condescending or to make assumptions. I just think sometimes businesses get a little tunnel vision, right, about their business and about their products and about their marketing. So I think there's techniques for building fear of missing out, that FOMO, that millennials are, it's all about FOMO and creating these moments where if you can build a preview for your grand opening and you have only a certain group of people come in and they feel special, well, get them to tweet about it. Get them to take photos with a background and put it on Instagram. Get them to send a message to your next audience that this is the place to be. So if you make them feel special and you videotape it, and this is another thing I would strongly recommend, is throw a party and then tape it. Get on the mic. Tell them how much you miss them. Tell them how much they mean to your business, how much the community is important to what you do, and then use that footage as a means of deepening the connection with your brand. this is where I would ask people who are playing in your preview or in your opening, or even on a regular basis if you've already opened, videotape people coming out of your games, coming out of your attractions, and ask them, how did that feel? They'll tell you. And if they're happy, you'll see it on their faces. And if you ask them what it feels like, the next person that sees that video is going to see their neighbor, is going to see somebody like them endorsing you. And that's, I think, how you sort of, I don't know, revitalize a brand that's been in place, is use some of the techniques that you would have to use if you were brand new. And if you were coming out right now, what are the tools that you would use? What are the tactics? Because they've changed. They're always changing. And I don't think you need to spend a ton of money to do it either. I think you pick a couple of tactics, try them. Digital marketing is great because you know immediately if it's working or not working. But figure out how to get your audience in, and then use that audience to get you a new audience. And then the cycle just continues and continues, and you build those audiences over time. But I think the deeper you can go into your data, the deeper that you can go into the emotions of your guests, the deeper that you can go into kind of the real value that you have as a brand, the better off you're going to be. Because a lot of people won't know how to do this, or won't know even that they should do it. But I think that there's a lot underlying kind of the player now, and getting them to come out and play is going to take some new thinking, and also some back to basics thinking.
Andre, what I really like about this is that, we're talking about marketing here, but then, you're talking about that guest satisfaction, and that, that word of mouth, and that loyalty, and that you said loyalty kind of like building upon itself. I've always called it the loyalty snowball. And, it's where marketing and operations really merge and kind of blend together, and that those can't be just completely separate functions.
They're not disparate at all. Yeah. Right. I think there's something to be said for the first moment somebody walks through your door is a brand experience. Mm-hmm. And that brand experience doesn't end even when they leave your building. It continues on to social media. It continues on to what they say to the next person that says, what do you want to do this weekend? And your positive review can be the answer to that question. And then, use things like the reviews that you've already got. If you've got great reviews from the past, use those. Tell people you're a 5-star location. Tell people that you have 4.8 out of 5 on Yelp. Use those use that as creative in your marketing campaigns too, because people are going to be looking around and saying, all right, now I can go back out. What should I do? And anything that points them towards your location or your attraction is a good thing. And I think as you build trust with your brand, people are also likely to trust their community. So you might look at things like nextdoor.com and patch.com as local places where you can build community and invite people from a local community out to a location. Make it very regionally focused. Give them something to make them think of your place as a community gathering place. I think that can really work wonders.
And that totally applies to a small mom and pop family entertainment center or arcade, all the way up to, a zoo, museum, aquarium, and even large scale theme park, of really kind of creating that sense of community around that, and inviting your community back. So
yeah, and experience and connection with other people. Those are the things I would focus on. Is this is all about feeling alive again, and having something that moves you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Andre, this has been a wonderful conversation. We can't thank you enough for all of your time and your insight. If you had any sort of lasting thoughts for folks, and your kind of last words on the call today, what would they be?
It's not game over. It's just a reboot. So take a deep breath and get back out there and communicate with your audiences, and ask them lots of questions.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's not game over.
Yeah,
it's not game over, not at all.
Yeah. That's a great note to kind of wrap this up. So Andre, thank you so much for joining us. And like Matt said, this was just an incredible, very interesting conversation. And I hope you stay safe and stay well. And best of luck to you as we all kind of navigate this this reopening for the industry.
It's been a pleasure. I thank you for your time, and I wish you guys all the best in your next steps too. Stay safe.